Hello, and welcome to the Gridiron Portfolio series. This is the first of our four-part series focusing on dynasty quarterback investment strategies. I'm Lance Gandy. You can find me on the X machine at LG_fantasy. I'm with my buddy Chris Cano. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. Let's get it.
All right, let's get into it with my first player who's a hold. That is CJ Stroud. Um, so after last season, you're obviously not getting a lot for him. It was a down season. This would be selling him at his lowest value. Fantasy Pros has him eighth in dynasty rankings right now. I don't even think he can get anywhere near that value right now. A few trades I've seen at Dynasty Daddy. Shout out to Dynasty Daddy for being an awesome tool. But I saw Stroud for the 2025 101. So that's basically Stroud for Cam Ward on the Titans, which I mean, Stroud's already proven Cam Ward's not, and he's going to a Titans team that's bereft of talent. Not a good buy. Stroud and Kendre Miller for the 2025 210 and 2026 first. First of all, that's basically Stroud for a 2026 first, where you don't even know how high that pick's going to be, and Kendre Miller for the 210 in this year's draft. That's selling low on both of those players. Um, and then Stroud for Will Levis and a 2025 105. Will Levis is dead weight at this point, basically. And then so that's Stroud for the 105, which is way off base. That might be Shedeur Sanders if you're lucky. Um, so he's a capped value quarterback. He showed a little on the ground on the postseason, but limited potential there. But I mean, there's a reason his value is so high after his rookie season. He shows elite ability to get the ball off quickly and accurately. He just needs the right offensive environment. I mean, Houston isn't dumb. They know the offensive line nerfed their offense in 2024. Most mocks I've seen have them taking an offensive lineman in the first round. They also just need, better offensive protection rules in place, which I think they'll get with replacing Bobby Slowick with Nick Caley, who was the passing game coordinator for the Rams. I think he'll be able to open up the offense more than it was last year. Bobby Slowick was so kind of set in his ways. And so hopefully they'll be able to pass on first down more and things like that. Um, in regards to the weapons, Nico is elite, but he needs help. I mean, they don't really have a tight end to speak of. Tank Dell is out for God knows how long. That was nasty injury. Steph Diggs, free agent. They've been linked to Chris Godwin. It's looking like he's going to be signed more and more back with the Bucks. But um, even if they don't get him, they're going to get some wide receiver help either in free agency or the draft. I'm guessing they go O line in the first round, but a wide receiver in the second round could definitely help. If the O line is short up in the draft and free agency, Stroud could easily be top eight again in 2025.
I don't know how you can't like CJ Stroud. If anybody were to kind of give up on him now, I'm sure it would be like a Christmas day. But why I would be worried about it, I mean that Slowick had to go, but the Rams they made the playoffs. They weren't actually they weren't really blowing people out with that offense. They had a pretty decent year, but Kaylee has a lot to prove, and Nico Collins is definitely elite, but he's been hurt. Tank Dell, like you said, he's out. We don't know till when. Don't know what's happening with Diggs, and uh, you really don't know what's going to happen in free agency, especially with Godwin and his loyalty to the Bucks. He won a Super Bowl there. I'm sure it's going to be really hard for him to want to leave. So, in this draft, that they're going to have to answer a lot of questions, and depending on what happens in that draft, is going to definitely make you feel probably more confident about CJ Stroud. But all those questions, even those insecurities about the coordinator, the injuries, compared to a lot of other situations, those are good problems to have.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you kind of got to wait and see on the offense. That's why I kind of have him as a hold. But let's move on to the next player. And this is your first. Who do you have as a buy?
I got Bo Nix.
Bonix.
I can't believe I'm seeing him at certain places in some of these dynasty drafts. 12th in dynasty rankings when he finished seventh last year. He had one of the hottest finishes to the year. He's not just a passing quarterback, even though he is very accurate,
Yeah, I looked this up.
which
He
is
was
fits.
in 6 of his last 7 games, he scored over 22 points in 6 point leagues. That's pretty
He
crazy.
just they it really just clicks in that Peyton offense, and Sean Payton's probably one of the best offensive minds in the business. Where he had a pretty Bo Nix isn't that short, but he had an accurate quarterback himself. And Breeze probably wish he could scramble and run like Bo, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. You add that, and maybe more impressive, and probably why he's dropping down the rankings of the weapons that he has. To me, for him to do that with his best weapon being Cortland Sutton, no disrespect to Sutton, he had a pretty good season. Um, it's pretty incredible how high he finished towards the end of the year, and this entire summer is all about improving the talent around Bo Nix. In 112 mock drafts, we see the Broncos taking Colston Loveland at 20th. They need a tight end pretty bad, but it's not just the first round they're looking. Second, third round, we're hearing running back and wide receivers what they're looking at too. For him to get those kind of stats, and now he's upgrading the weapons. They have one of the best offensive lines in the game. Really, now is the time to buy on Bo. If you got a chance to get him sort of in that second tier of quarterbacks, he's somebody who has a lot of potential to jump to that first tier, make you look like a genius.
And you think about it with the talent he had. I mean, he had Sutton and he had nothing else. No running backs, no, I mean, what was Vele the next best player on his team? I mean,
Bailey
he was
and
working with
Mims,
nothing.
home
Um,
run threats, good guys, guys you need on the team. But compared to some of the other teams and the weapons they had, he made lemonade out of some lemons out there. And now that he's going to be getting some high end talent in the draft, hopefully, um, that's somebody that you want to try to grab as soon as possible, especially for the value that you could probably get for him.
Loveland would definitely help. Peyton needs his joker, and running back help yeah, would be welcome on there.
Yeah,
Um,
run the ball's good. Mark Ingram is pretty good, so they definitely need a few more holes to fill. But for him to be doing what he did down the stretch and then still kind of be underrated a little bit, it's pretty. The
it's
time to
really,
strike is now.
yeah, it's really only looking up for
Head
him.
scratcher.
Um, okay, so my next player is a buy. I have Trevor Lawrence. Um, so his value could be, I mean, the lowest since his rookie year. He's 17th right now in Fantasy Pros, behind look Baker Mayfield, 30 next season, behind Jared Goff, 31 next season. Those guys both lost their offensive coordinators. Trevor Lawrence is going to be 26 in the middle of next season. I mean, we know Baker lit it up last year with 44 total touchdowns. Who is his play caller? Trevor Lawrence's play caller now, Liam Cohen. So let's do this exercise. So Trevor in 2022 is QB8. His top wide receiver was Christian Kirk. Kirk's nice. He's not a number one. His offensive coordinator was Press Taylor, who was eaten and shit out on the Bears as the pass game coordinator now. So he now has Liam Cohen calling his shots, and Liam's, I'll go out and say this, less talented QB last year, Baker, was QB4. So Trevor now has the best wide receiver he's ever played with, and Brian Thomas Jr., who's, I mean, at this moment right now is top 12 wide receiver. And I mean, he could easily get into the elite tier sooner than later. Um, I mean, also in Dynasty, I think it's important to talk about coaching staff because the surroundings matter so much to a player's output and just a team's overall outlook. So Liam Cohen ran Trent Baalke out of town. Thank God. The new GM is a young dude. Don't know much about him. His name's James Gladstone, but anything is better than bulky at this point. So the arrow is pointed up for the team to actually get some talent, and in turn, arrow pointed up for Lawrence.
I'm seeing they're thinking about O-line, and this is a boy, do they really need it in Jacksonville? Really, the only way to go is up for Jacksonville. My only worry about Trevor is, he's had this hype since he was drafted, and they haven't exactly had enough talent around him. And Brian Thomas Jr. is definitely a big talent. He's just getting started. Their chemistry is just getting started. But Trevor is very much somebody who still has a lot to prove. He hasn't exactly excelled on the fantasy field. He had a pretty good year where they made the playoffs, but even that year, he wasn't doing very well. What makes you feel like he is a better, at 26 years old, he's pretty much a vet in the league in terms of those vets. How high is he on your tier of veteran quarterbacks?
So I think I would have him over Kyler Murray at this point. I think Murray has kind of reached his peak. I mean, we saw Murray, what he did last year with the kind of talent that he had around him. Um, and Murray is ranked, what, 4 or 5 spots ahead of him right now. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is pretty close to Anthony Richardson right now in rankings. You know, Trevor has proven to be at least QB 8, and I would argue that he can do so much better with better offensive system with Liam Cohen, better talent around him. I mean, he has Brian Thomas Jr. right now, but they could get some offensive line talent in the draft, and so I think literally the arrows pointed up. I don't like at 17th. You don't have to give much at all for him right now, and he could,
A
even if
good
he
point.
never turns into what he should have been, you can't look back on that and say, I don't want to pay a 17th price for him. Um, because I mean that bar's so low right now.
That is true. It's a good point.
Uh, All right, let's move on to the next guy. Who do you also have as a buy?
Now, we just talked about this. I am shocked that I see Michael Penix Jr. at 20th in the dynasty rankings. I know there's only 3 games he started, and the first two weren't exactly great. His best game at the end of the year against Carolina, 312, 2 touchdowns and a pick, but he certainly showed a lot more scrambling ability than he did in college. Falcons, but the great thing about Penix is what the Falcons already have ready for him. He's coming in with a arsenal of weapons. Drake London, fantastic. You know what you got in Bijan. He's maybe one of the top fantasy players in all football. Certainly a top 5, top 3 pick. Um, and you look at where they fit, not to mention one of the best offensive lines in football. They finished 14th in passing attempts, 5th in passing yards, but then 20th in touchdowns and 29th in interceptions. And a lot of that was Kirk Cousins' arm dying
Yeah, that's
every
kind of
single
a
week
Kirk.
and just
Yeah.
going down and down and down. Now you got somebody in Penix coming in with these type of weapons. They're having a whole summer, really 2 summers for him to get some more chemistry with these boys. 20th in the rankings. Uh, there's nobody else at that level of a draft that you're going to find with those kind of weapons. He has A+ weapons all around him. They're just waiting for somebody to step in and be the quarterback, which is why they traded for Kirk and it didn't work. Sometimes that happens, but it's also why they brought in Penix just in case it didn't. So I really think he's going to hit the ground running. If you do not get him early, you're going to regret it. And again, like you said about Trevor Lawrence, if you're spending 17th pick value for Penix 20th pick value for somebody who could probably be a top 12, at least top 15, higher than 20, uh, really where's the regret in any of that?
Yeah, true. So I see him again as kind of Stroud-esque, as like a capped QB because he really doesn't give you anything with his legs. But that being said, he's like a ready-made QB too. It's like if you are a contender, but you only have one QB in a superflex league, this is the perfect guy to get because all of the talent he has around him, he can't fail basically unless he gets hurt or something like that. I mean, so these are the trades that have been recent. Penix and a 2026 round three pick for 2025 pick 108, 2026 second round. That's that's smash accept every day. Penix for 2025 pick 108, 2026 round two. I mean, that's a steal. And you're getting just a QB2 who has upside, you know? Um,
And most of the apprehension with Penix was that really that Cousins was there. You never he had a 4-year contract. You really didn't know how long he was going to sit. But at the combine this week, Raheem Morris came out and said he's the future. They're pretty much ride or dying with this kid. They believe in him. I'm sure his teammates believe in him. This guy threw, last time we really saw him play, nearly threw for 5,000 yards and took Washington to the college football final. He's a heck of a player. He's very accurate, and to, that's really all the Falcons are looking for. They have a
Also,
fantastic
just
offensive line, fantastic run game.
think about the NFC South. The Buccaneers, Panthers, and Saints. He's going to be playing them twice a year, every year. All those are
Sounds like
terrible
money.
defenses. I mean, that's money.
Yeah,
That's money in the bank. Like, I
they
mean,
all
that's
got a lot
enough
of work to
said.
do. No, really nobody in that division looks like they're poised to take that next step. But if Penix is that dude and the Falcons think he is, you're going to regret not pulling the trigger on, like you said, throwing away some late draft picks or something like that for Penix. He has a chance to really be a flagship quarterback with the type of weapons he has, especially if he's anywhere close to what they gave up to get him. Because not only did they bring him in when Cousins was there, they traded up for him. They believe in this guy, and he's going to have the full support of that team.
Agreed. And I hate that I agree with everything you're saying. But I do. So we're gonna go with that. So my last player is a sell. That is Baker Mayfield. Um,
Baker,
and that's the inverse of the Trevor conversation, is why you sell Baker. He lost Liam Cohen to the Jags. They promoted somebody named Josh Grizzard to
it's a
offensive
great name.
coordinator. I don't know if I like that name or not. It's weird. But he was the
Sounds like a
passing game
football
coordinator.
name.
He was the passing game coordinator last year, and so they're obviously trying to keep the status quo with the offense. But I mean, do we remember when the Eagles tried to do that with Brian Johnson in 2023? I mean, it was a disaster. So it's no guarantee that you can just kind of pass the torch and expect the same output. Mike Evans going to be 32 next year, and if they're able to get Chris Godwin, he'll be 29, coming off his second career-altering injury. So, that age cliff comes knocking quickly. Could for either one of them. Jalen McMillan, he got better as the season progressed, but is he going to be a difference maker? I'm not sure. Um, so let's look at some recent trades. So Baker for T. Higgins. That's every day of the week. Smashing except T is going to be either uh second obviously on the Bengals or 1B to Chase and putting up all kinds of points, or he's going to be a huge number one on a different team and you're getting gold. Baker for Nico Collins and pick 110. That's so easy. I mean that's like, makes you want to grab a beer, sit by the pool and say life is fucking good.
And not feel guilty.
Right?
No guilt there. My only worry about Baker is there's probably nobody else, no other quarterback in the league right now who has had more people not believe in what this guy could do. And he had it really the last 2 years. He's been pretty good. But you're right. They got a new offensive coordinator. Evans, he seems to never really get old. He's Mr. Consistent, but in football, it hits you
You say that
fast.
until he does.
Yeah, in football, it hits you fast. your wings melt quickly. You're happy to see what happened with Bucky. Yeah, it seems like they got some real talent there, but they got a long way to go. They got a lot of questions. And so for Baker, it's really you hate to bet against the guy because he continues to prove people wrong. But again, it's sometimes you just got to go with what the numbers say.
That's what I'm doing. All right, I think that's what we got for you today. We'll be back with running backs in the next version of the series. So for Chris and me, thanks for stopping by. See you guys soon.